Hello, this is Elena of the Witches Box, and I'm here today with another episode of Witch Booktube. And today we're outside again, and I just love it out here. It's so beautiful. I'm not going to be here for very much longer here in Idyllwild, California, and I wanted to just savor as much as possible. What's happening up here, I'll give this little tidbit and then I'll get into the book review, is that here in Idyllwild we had huge catastrophic fires this last year. And because of that, beautiful trees were gone, a huge chunk of the forest gone. The fire came up to just less than a quarter of a mile down the road, so our home was in danger of getting burned down. We have friends who lost their home. It was horrible. But this is part of what happens when you live in nature. Sometimes these things happen naturally, and sometimes these things happen because someone is what I like to term biophobic and wounded. Arson was the cause of this fire. In any case, as things happen, when you lose so many trees, when rain hits, there's been landslides, there are 3 roads that lead up this mountain, and 2 of them have been just completely decimated and washed out in the rains that came after the fire. And so what you hear, this is such a long story, but I think that these book reviews are going to become story time for you and I, so this is what it is. What you're hearing now is people have been working tirelessly since the fire and since the landslides to repair everything, to kind of help the people of this really small community. We're at about, I think, 2,500 in terms of population, so it's a small town that has been severely affected by the fact that people from off the hill can't get up, so businesses are not flourishing, people are having a miserable time trying to get to work, people are having a hard time trying to get to school, and it's been like this for months. And so all that to say is that I love being outside. It's a beautiful environment. I love Idyllwild, and the noise pollution is uncomfortable. It's hard, but it's also something I'm grateful for because it also speaks to how tirelessly these workers are at building roads again, trying to reinforce landslides, and it's been a big year for this poor, sad mountain. All that to say, we were not the only victims of fires in Southern California, so I wanted to send a little love and resiliency to those communities because it's really hard when we lose so much so quickly. All right, what I want to talk to you about is the book. It was an audiobook, another audiobook, and another book that I didn't think I was going to share with you because I've got 2 other books that I've been reading that I wanted to talk to you about. But this book is called The Soul Retrieval Journey, and it's by Sandra Ingerman, and I heard it on an audiobook, so I'll link all that below. And Sandra Ingerman is one of the co-authors of the book that we talked about last week in Speaking with Nature. She is a shaman practitioner, and I wanted to read to you her bio here that I've got on Goodreads. Okay, so Sandra Ingerman, MA, is the author of 8 books, 7 CD programs, and the creator of Transmutation app. She is a world-renowned teacher of shamanism and has been teaching for over 30 years. She teaches workshops internationally on shamanic journeying, healing, and reversing environmental pollution using spiritual methods. She has trained and founded an international alliance of medicine for the earth teachers and shamanic teachers. Sandra is recognized for bridging ancient cross-cultural healing methods into the modern culture addressing the needs of our times. Sandra is devoted to teaching people how we can work together as a global community to bring about positive change for the planet. Sandra is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a professional mental health counselor. She is also a board-certified expert in traumatic stress, as well as certified in acute traumatic stress management. She was awarded the 2007 Peace Award from the Global Foundation for Integrative Medicine, and Sandra was chosen as one of the top 10 spiritual leaders of 2013 in the November-December issue of Spirituality and Health. I find reading her bio and the fact that we're outside also a little meaningful. One of the things that I love about the Witches Box community on social media and through our email is that when you all reach out to me, you reach out to me with questions and comments, and it informs the direction in which I go in terms of what rituals we put in the boxes, what spells I include in the boxes, but also what books I read. You have all given me a lot of recommendations that I really appreciate, and I have them on the list, and I will get to them at some point. However, there is also an undercurrent of unspoken suggestions as to what I read, and if that makes sense, because I get a lot of questions around, I don't know that I'm called to being a Wiccan. I'm a witch, but I don't know what kind, I don't know what tradition I should follow. How do I find a tradition that honors my ancestors and doesn't bring me into a situation where I may be misappropriating someone else's living culture? Like, these are really important questions that we sometimes talk about, but sometimes we don't. It just sometimes gets touched on and then it moves away. And those types of questions definitely inform what books I choose to read, because I'm curious as well. I want to provide you with whatever answers I can. I want to facilitate your journey however I can as a service. So those things absolutely touch really every aspect of the Witches Box and what we do together with the Witches Box. Okay, so with that said, shamanism exists somewhere between religion and tradition, because it's a very cross-cultural spiritual path. And Sandra talks about that in this book, where there's this misconception with a lot of people that shamanism is a very specific Native American, Native peoples religion or spirituality, and it is not. It is actually something that is found in Siberia, in Asia, in Africa, in Europe, in North and South America. There's a common thread in this type of soul work across the planet. And yes, the rituals and the ways of approaching certain aspects of shamanism in Siberia, let's say, is very different than in North America or than it would be in Asia. There are cultural overlays to the expression of shamanism in different parts of the world, but the underlying current is the same. And what I want to present to you all is that this is an option or a path of exploration for those of you who are not feeling particularly Wiccan, particularly neo-pagan. Like, there are a lot of books out there right now that kind of do witchcraft light, and you want deeper work. I think that shamanism can be an avenue of learning that can be very rich for all of us, particularly when it comes to healing and personal internal transformation. So that's a lot to say about a book where what she does is she defines what shamanism is in this book. She talks about shamanism's perspective on illness in the body, spiritual illness, and how a shamanic practitioner will help you with that. She talks about power animals, very different than spirit animal. So there's that context that's really important to learn. She talks about the different power leaks and what those look like, how those manifest, and how she might go about facilitating someone in helping heal that, and how those power leaks contribute to illnesses. Really important stuff, particularly now that I'm kind of moving us slowly as a community into protection magic. And I talk extensively about the ways that we leak power. This is another lens through which to look at that that's really very rich, really powerful, and expands your understanding of not only your internal spiritual terrain, but the global, universal field on which we all exist, which is not just what we see. This is a path and a tradition that speaks very strongly to that which we don't see. There are worlds going on around us all the time that are not seen. This taps into our souls, it taps into ancestors, it taps into the spirit and potency of inanimate and animate objects that have their own guides. So it's really, really rich, and I really appreciated the way she broke it down, because if you're new to this, it gives you a really great overview and an understanding. But if you're not new to this, what she brings to it is her work as a therapist, because you know I'm a therapy freak. She talks about how shamanism and the practices of shamanism in modern day are powerful tools to heal our traumas and the impacts, the traumatic impacts of life that we all sustain throughout the course of our lives. There's no way to move through life without an impact of some sort. We've all experienced pain, we've all experienced loss and death and trauma, right? And so she brings that lens in, and I thought that was it's really a very beautiful way to look at how we can view our spiritual life, cultivate our spiritual life, and then apply it to our very necessary soul healing. So much of the books that I've been reading lately on witchcraft are just about spells to do this, spells to get this, spells to, I want more money, I don't know, man, I want that girl, I want that guy, I want, these spells that are about wanting in the immediate. This talks about the soul. and how we cultivate and heal and keep our soul intact and bring parts of our soul back once those parts of our souls have left because of the traumatic impact of life. It's really beautifully potent and something I think is really important, if only to remind all of us that witchcraft, the way that we kind of conceptualize it in the very broadest of terms, is about connection, right? I will drive this home all the time because beyond traditions, beyond cultures, this is about connection. And to the extent that you are connected with your soul and your internal terrain is the extent that you will be connected to what is going on outside of you. So the other thing that I really appreciated that was really a teaching for me in this audiobook was that I'm not quite sure how she introduced this topic. I think that she mentioned that people ask her, is it possible to do your own soul retrieval? And the idea behind soul retrieval, and I think I touched on it a few minutes ago, is that to protect us, sometimes some parts of our souls will eject out and leave. Like it can't handle whatever the impact is. If you have an injury, if you have a car accident, if you've been abused, there are certain parts of life that happen where the trauma is so instant but also hard on the body and on the psyche and on the soul that a part of your soul just checks out because it just can't. And that's a powerful defense mechanism because it helps us to survive. So it's not a bad thing. It is about survival. But in those instances, parts of us leave. So soul retrieval is all about bringing those parts of our soul back. And so people will ask her, is there a way for me to do it myself? How can I retrieve parts of my soul? Which speaks a lot to me because I'm very much about being as independent as possible. I'm very much about, you don't need a guru. I'm very much about trying to facilitate all of you to learn all these things for yourself so that you don't have to rely on me. You don't have to rely on other people to do your magic, to practice your soul practices, right? However, I mean, that speaks a lot about my own internal stuff. So, truth. She talks about the fact that no, you can't retrieve your soul on your own. And the reason for that is that there's a very powerful spiritual reason for community, which makes me emotional just actually thinking about it. So there you are, a real honest moment. We are all part of one another. We all exist together. We are all in this drumbeat of existence together, and spirituality is not meant to happen in a vacuum. So it was really a hard and important reminder for me that, of course, we need each other. We need help. We need support. And there's this beautiful teaching with shamanism that you need the assistance of someone else, not because you're not strong enough or you're not enough, but because that dynamic in and of itself is its own healing. It is really beautiful, and I highly recommend it. I think that it was like a 2 hour and change audiobook. I have listened to it twice. And I'm probably going to be reading quite a few of her other books. I've got them on my list because I think that it's really a beautiful, powerful reminder of a lot of things. Enjoyed it tremendously. I love her voice. She's the one who reads the audiobook. I'm actually obviously becoming a little bit more amenable to audiobooks and not so snobbish about audiobooks, but I recommend it highly. If you get it, if you listen to it, I'd love to hear what you think. I do believe that there are a couple of you in this community that are shamans or practice that path. I'd love to hear from you and hear about what your personal work looks like. She speaks to it very much in terms of her service because she incorporates this service into her therapy practice, which I think is incredibly powerful and beautiful that we've got therapists out there who are doing soul work, not just psyche work, right? But I'd also love to see what that looks like for all of you if this is a path that you follow on the personal, on the day-to-day. What she talks about in terms of power animals really, really intrigued me. I think I've mentioned somewhere in social medias somewhere, someone asked about what do I think about spirit animals. And spirit animals are a very specific Native people's practice. But I have animals that I work with outside of that. It's not that tradition. It's something different that I don't speak about because I'm not empowered to teach it and pass it down. However, this gives me different context for the animals that I work with. It's really beautiful, really beautiful. I really am excited about diving deeper into this work, and I encourage you all to at least give this a listen to because it can give you a pretty good morsel of what it is without you having to go super deep into it. It can give you an idea really quickly of whether or not this is something that you want to explore further after this or not. So there's that. That's the book for this week. It very well may be that next week I'm filming from a whole other place because we are going to be traveling for a little bit for the summer. There's that. It's like, you know, it's like Where's Waldo, only it's Where It's Elena. Where's Elena? I think that's it for today. I would love to hear from you. Keep the comments coming. Please subscribe and click that bell so that you have a notification when these videos come out. And I will see you next week. Have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.